Remember the smart thermostat? It's working well. I've decided to do a little refactoring. I've changed the P5 sketch to use instance mode. So you see this new P5 and then an anonymous function with P, the formal parameter, and then I use P to create the functions like setup and draw, and also to access anything to do with P5, so calling frame rate, background, and so on. So that's one change. The other is I changed the other JavaScript file that I called client, but now I'm calling thermo-client. This is all the client-side application code other than the P5 sketch. So I've renamed it to thermo-client, and I've added TypeScript stuff for type safety. And I won't go over all of it, but I've created an interface called Sketch that contains the two functions that this object calls into the sketch. So I've cleaned up and made more explicitly defined the interface between this client object and the sketch. Then there's this state object that contains these properties, and I've made an interface for that. I've created a new function because I had to do a cast. I'll show you that at the end. I moved in the code to add this event listener from the bottom of the file. Instead of calling these functions from the sketch file directly, finding them in the global context, I call them through an object that's passed when this client object is instantiated. Here you see I've added the state type to this function method. Here this takes a number, but then it has to turn it into a string to pass it as the body for fetch. And finally here's the new method input element. It casts what getElement by ID returns to an HTML input element so that we can access the value property of it. Okay, so that's just a quick look at some refactoring I've done on the smart thermostat.